financial upheaval that impacts the supply of credit.
He owns one. Has his view changed?
I think I bought into this property with a view that that eventually property prices in Australia will need to equalise in one way or another. I bought this as a place that I knew that I'd be happy just living in at the cost it costs, you know. So I didn't go into the purchase thinking I want this asset to, you know, significantly rise in value. I wouldn't like to see it plummet, that's for sure. So I'm of the same mindset as I was before.
And what about in Singapore, where the system favors buying one, but only one home?
I think there are two different groups of people in Singapore. In my point of view, I belong to the one that I want to buy a few more properties, be it residential or commercial, to build a portfolio.
As governments around the world take on the housing of to pull, but who is the Peter we're borrowing from to pay off which Paul?
Coming up, what happens when the demand for specialty foods overwhelms global supply? We look at the growing passion for matcha.
World's most powerful investors don't ring a bell. They quietly reshape entire industries. This is the money shaping the world. The Dealmaker Playbook, where power and billions of dollars change hands every day. From private equity and credit to venture capital and M&A, we bring you the inside scoop on the biggest deals and debates, plus exclusive conversations with finance's ultimate insiders. I'm Danny Berger, and this is Bloomberg Deals. Every week, only on Bloomberg Television.
U.S. jobs numbers are released. Bloomberg has the report under surveillance with crucial data and expert analysis at terminal speed. Nobody covers Jobs Day like Bloomberg.
The problem we've got as an industry is when the government's overtax, and let's say they tax at 30 or 40% of net gaming revenue, what happens is it starts making it uneconomical for the regulated operators like ourselves. And then the customers land up going to the black market, and the black market don't pay tax, do whatever, and there's no customer, there's no responsible gaming, and the fiscals of these governments don't collect any money. So it's finding a balance between overtaxing and then not regulating. Anything from 15 to 25% of your net gaming revenue paid on tax is probably the right number. And when you start going above that, the metrics start becoming a bit more complicated for lots of the operators.
At a time when policy in Washington is driving Wall Street, we draw a distinction between the rhetoric and the action, bringing you market-moving guests and original reporting. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
This is a story about globalization gone wrong. Social media has opened up new markets for acai, ube, matcha, and Dubai chocolate, markets far from their countries of origin. But when demand spikes, it can show the limits of those long supply chains. Our colleague Scarlett Fu reports on what that means for your matcha.
Let's go get some.
Whether you're browsing through a social media app or going to a grocery store, matcha is everywhere, from Starbucks to Trader Joe's to budding matcha cafes.
This is your sign to stop drinking coffee and start drinking matcha.
It tastes so close to the original. What?
As a current Harvard student, I finally understand the science behind why matcha is so addicting.
If you're gonna make a matcha. Don't be cheap with it.
Matcha is just one of several food trends gone viral thanks to social media, from acai.
And do I regret buying a 3-gallon bucket of acai? No.
To ube.
Will you be my ube?
And Dubai chocolate.
I got some Dubai chocolate as a light snack.
Social media-driven food trends are reshaping demand faster than ever before.
It's unbelievable how fast a trendsetter, an influencer, can generate huge spikes in the demand for products.
Miguel Gomez is a Cornell University professor who teaches food marketing.
It is a challenge for the supply chain to meet that demand at that very moment, because if you miss as supply chain, you miss the opportunity that there is huge interest in a product such as desserts with ube. The question is, are farmers prepared to react as fast to these trends as they should to meet the demand?
This is hardly the first time that food has gone global. Social media is just the latest innovation to fuel widespread demand for foods from around the world. This has actually been happening for hundreds of years.
The first inflection point in the globalization of food and crops dates to 400 years ago, with maize and tomatoes being produced in the Americas, being exported to Europe, and wheat and other grains being shipped from Europe to the Americas. But it was in the 1980s when the development of the containers for transportation really allowed many of the commodities to be really global. And then we have the latest trend that is driven by social media.
When a trendy food takes off and goes global, walk us through what typically happens on the supply side. Is there a specific sequence that takes place?
When these products become truly global because of consumer demand in high-income countries like the US, Europe, etc., this poses big opportunities but big challenges to the supply chains. For example, ube. There is a huge explosion of demand for use of ube because of the beautiful color in confectionery, in desserts, in restaurants, but also in the supermarkets. And ube is native from the Philippines, but this demand is really demand is just exceeding what Filipino farmers are able to supply. Another thing that is happening with these products, because these markets are relatively small, these are very niche products. Demand tends to shift dramatically, and this means lots of risk for farmers, because if you look at what has happened with products like ube, matcha, is that you see that the farm price for these commodities is very volatile because demand fluctuates so much and production is trying to catch up with that demand.
Matcha originated in China over 1,000 years ago, before migrating to Japan, which is now the world's matcha capital. The drink itself is made from green tea leaves that have been ground into a fine powder. Rising demand has led to a dramatic increase in Japanese exports of matcha, a 4 from the previous year. And now, China has overtaken Japan, supplying 60% of the world's matcha.
We have seen incredibly strong growth on matcha within the last 2 years, and I've been doing this for 10 years. So I think the last 2 years, there's been a real surge in the demand and awareness for matcha.
Hannah Habes is a matcha pioneer in the U.S. She is CEO of Matchaful, a company she founded over a decade ago. Habes operates sales through her website and has 7 storefronts in New York City.
I was actually working in the processed packaged food industry right out of college. I started to notice changes in my health, consuming packaged foods every day. And around the same time, after being in this very heavily processed industry, I was introduced to matcha, which was this incredibly clean, beautiful caffeine alternative to coffee that made me feel more sustained, more focused, more calm. And it really was that lightning bulb moment for me, that epiphany of, I've got to do something with this. And at the time, Matcha really didn't have presence in the US. This was in 2012 when I kind of first took my life-changing sip of matcha.
In 2023, the global matcha market was worth about $4 billion. That's half of its expected value by 2030. The US is an example of the surge in demand. According to research firm NIQ, sales of matcha grew 86% in the last 3 years.
It's accelerated to a point that I think last year was almost unsustainable. We saw farmers having supply constraints and people, online trying to figure out, where to get their matcha and how to make sure that they're not, over-consuming matcha. So there was a heightened awareness of this supply chain issue around matcha.
It's more than specialty matcha cafes. Dunkin' Donuts offers a matcha latte. Starbucks reported a 40% year-over-year increase in matcha sales for the first quarter of 2025. And Blank Street Coffee sold so much matcha that it ended up dropping coffee from its name.
So I think the interesting thing with Starbucks is they have actually had matcha on their menu, a form of matcha mixed with cane sugar, but they've had it on their menu for over 10 years. Even before I started Matchaful, Starbucks had what was called a green tea latte on their menu. It had matcha in it, but they didn't necessarily call it matcha because I think at that point, not many people knew what matcha was. And now they're really leaning into matcha.
Japan's matcha production tripled between 2010 and 2023, but even that failed to keep pace with demand as matcha is added to desserts and smoothies. The matcha market is now cracking under the weight of all the demand. To make matters worse, last year, farmers in Kyoto, who supply a quarter of the world's tea used for matcha, struggled after hot weather led to poor harvests.
It's a plant, and I think it's important to remember that. And our farmers, we did see shortages on the matcha. So naturally, we did see prices rise on matcha, and we did experience some shortages.
What is happening is that the supply chain is procuring matcha that is not following the standards that the Japanese employ to produce what they call matcha. So what you see is a huge differences in the quality of matchas produced in different origins. And that can create a long-term confusion in consumers or may affect the value of matcha for the Japanese traditional growers. Right now, for example, India, South Korea, China producing the product that we call matcha, but with different standards. So what is happening is that matcha, as we know as a Japanese ceremonial, very niche product, is becoming massified and is perhaps not of the same quality of the matcha that is produced in Japan.
With matcha, quality does matter. And I think with the first harvest in Japan, it tends to be a little sweeter. It's traditionally what's coined as ceremonial matcha, really meant for drinking as a tea, in a latte. So we're seeing the demand for ceremonial grade continue to rise, but the pricing for ceremonial grade also is more expensive. And so I think with the second harvest culinary grade matcha, the pricing on that is a little more approachable. So I think there is a vast difference in quality and price point with matcha, and we're seeing matcha as a price point is rising because the demand is growing, because harvests are down. We are just seeing the price points continue to rise on ceremonial and culinary grade. And I think consumers are aware of this, but we don't necessarily see it impacting our business in any way at this point.
I think people are very particular about their matcha, and I marketed this business well before we opened. So I taste tested 12 different matchas on TikTok to see what the consumer wanted, and they were very excited about the matcha that we selected.
Sammy Nussdorf is the founder and CEO of Meadow Lane, a gourmet food market in the Tribeca neighborhood of New York. Okay, so this is something you knew coming in that you would have to offer to your clientele.
For sure.
And did you think in terms of you need to offer other kinds of matcha products given how much interest there is in matcha overall?
I didn't think so. I wanted to make the choice easy for the consumer. I think that people are stunned by too many options and we're stuck in this paradox of choice. I think that offering one and doing a lot of diligence on a product like matcha makes it easier on the consumer, and it's like we've selected the best for them. I do think that a wealthier audience probably influences the masses into, how can I treat myself? And food's being looked at as a status symbol right now. It's like these micro luxuries. Like a lot of people can't afford a Birkin, but they can afford a Rhode lip gloss, and that is like an identifier as to like what you subscribe to and what's on trend, and these micro luxuries that you can afford, which is like, I guess, similar to here. Like you might not be able to afford a $300 Michelin meal, but you can afford a, organic, well-made, nicely sourced $23 salad.
Even though Sammy says he doesn't believe in selling trendy food products, Meadow Lane does respond to whatever food crazes his clientele is attracted to.
Can a viral moment create demand faster than the supply can meet it?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, as we saw with the opening, I think it was once the infatuation or eater, came for press day and they tried certain menu items that's what became very viral off the bat. And that shifts, as the business progresses.
Whether coming from Starbucks or a niche grocery store, the bottom line is it's important to understand your supply.
What is the most misunderstood part about the globalization of niche foods, trendy foods, something that consumers get wrong about how supply chains work?
We consumers in general know very little about how these products are produced, who produces them, where, how, and how is that product coming to our tables, in our houses, or in a restaurant. So I think what we need to do is to educate consumers.
That does it for us here at Wall Street Week. I'm David Weston. See you next week for more stories of capitalism.
Trading day is about to start.
And you're already looking for that edge.
The opening trade brings you everything you need to know as markets open across Europe.
Let's talk about the significant risk transfers to find space in their balance sheet.
Hedging some of that risk.
You could look at it the other way. Obviously, this stuff is risk-weighted.
I would much rather be long than be short.
We're in a kind of sweet spot.
Very, very strong alignment.
3 revolutions in one.
I'm Guy Johnson.
Every trading day, only on Bloomberg.
We have two crises, two essential crises, and for both it's now or never: democracy and climate, and they are absolutely interlinked, and we have to solve them together. We're losing the democratic infrastructure and norms to deal with the climate, and we're losing the climate stability that is essential for a democracy. We have to solve them together. We've never faced a threat like this to our democracy at a time when it's a perfect storm, at a time when we're being told by climate scientists, some of you may be in this room, that we have to cut our emissions, fossil fuel emissions, in half in 5 years now. When I started to realize what was happening, it was 12 years, and we haven't done it.
From the world of politics to the world of business, Joe Matthew and Kaylee Lines deliver news, insight, and analysis live 2 times a day, every trading day. Balance of Power at 1 and 5 Eastern, only on Bloomberg.
Good morning. This is Bloomberg Daybreak Europe. I'm Lizzie Burden in London, and these are the stories that set your agenda.
Taking you from the U.S. market's close to the overnight session in Asia, we'll walk you through what you need to know to kickstart Europe's trading day. Live from our European headquarters, we bring you the day's top market-moving stories, unmatched expert analysis, and on-the-ground reporting from across the continent. Tune in to Daybreak Europe, only on Bloomberg Television. Context changes everything.
It's a cool view up here.
It's quite a view.
So we're on top of a compute data hall that will generate about 25 megawatts of power for Blackwell chips. And you can see at the edge here, you get a really nice view of how much we're planning to expand here. So the third building will go in here, the fourth building will go in here, the fifth building there.
Welcome to Stargate, a massive AI data center complex under construction in Abilene, Texas. OpenAI, SoftBank, and Oracle announced the project in January alongside President Trump and said they plan to spend as much as $500 billion on sites in Abilene and beyond. Overseeing this first phase of the project is Chase Lockmiller, founder of data center startup Crusoe. The company is constructing 8 massive buildings, which together will hold as much as 400,000 NVIDIA GPUs. That means a lot more compute for OpenAI, and if CEO Sam Altman's goals are realized, big breakthroughs in what its AI is capable of.
Personally, the area I'm most excited about is AI for scientific discovery. I'm hopeful that 2026 will be a big year of new scientific progress.
When are we going to get to AGI?
Depending on how you define AGI, I think there's some reasonable probability that AGI is actually born here in Abilene.
What do you mean by that?
I mean that there will be will be able to perform complex tasks better than a human, and that discovery, that breakthrough, will be done here at this data center.
Bold words, but any venture of this scale comes with risks. And some have questioned the business sense of plowing hundreds of billions of dollars into AI infrastructure like this. Bloomberg's Brody Ford has been following Stargate and the many ways it could go wrong or right for the Stargate partners and for the city of Abilene.
Thank for coming to have a drink.
Thank you. We got the cactus right behind you, too.
I love it.
Yeah.
What's your impression of Stargate?
It's happening, right? I mean, there's a lot of naysayers on the internet that nothing about it's real, but it's clear. I mean, it is a massive project. The fact that they're talking about having, you know, a gigawatt of capacity live in about 2 years, it's an ambitious target, and seeing that in person kind of showed how frantic the whole thing feels.
A gigawatt is huge.
Oh, it's huge. It's comically big, right? I mean, nobody was saying these kind of numbers 2 years ago.
Yeah. How does this compare to other big tech projects in other places?
We've been tracking a lot of the big data center projects. I mean, data center spending has ramped in the last couple of years. It passed $200 billion in CapEx in the last year. I think 2 big projects that people are really watching right now is here in Abilene for Stargate and Elon's build out in Memphis. Both have been thought to be the largest computing clusters at various moments, depending on who you ask. But I think what unites them is just the fact that they need so many chips, and it's the amount of labor coming into them.
This is, to me, a very big thing. $500 billion Stargate project. I think it's going to be something that's very special.
The number, $500 billion. Is that for real?
I don't think anybody thinks they're going to hit 500 billion. Maybe I will eat my words.
No, I came back.
SoftBank has a reputation for buying toward the top, for getting into projects once the hype cycle is already pretty advanced.
I'm very confident. We don't need $500 billion in one day. We go step by step, okay? So we are very confident to make it happen.
This is a lot of money, and you know, not all of your bets have paid off. Where do you get your conviction?
Well, you know, sometimes I get crazily overexcited, and I make mistake like we work, and you know, I have many scars. But when you have a conviction and a passion, you actually learn more from those mistakes and the scars, and that will make you stronger.
Where's the money going? Like, who's the real winner here?
So yeah, I think we've all seen NVIDIA's stock go up an insane number and said, whoa, how is that spending ramping so heavily? It's these data centers, right? I mean, in what we saw today, 400,000 chips, that's conservatively $15, $20 billion.
AI holds incredible promise for all of us.
Let's talk about Oracle.
Yes.
Like, what is Oracle's role?
For a long time, you know, the leaders in offering cloud infrastructure forever was, you know, Amazon, Microsoft, to a lesser extent, Google. People weren't taking Oracle seriously for a long time, but with the AI boom, they have shown they're able to make these really vast data centers quickly. And so their role here is essentially putting in the servers, putting in the fiber optic cable, and getting that compute over to OpenAI. I mean, the underlying theme here is that OpenAI and companies like it need as much computing power as they can. They're looking for creative ways to, conjure up those funds. And Oracle is a company that says, oh God, you want to pay us to build out these data centers? Absolutely, count us in.
The sizes keep getting bigger.
Yeah.
And bigger. Is there a chance we're overbuilding? Do we need all this?
God, every single day somebody has a different take, right? Every single day, like we saw with DeepSeek, right? That, wait a second, do we really need all of this infrastructure?
For those not obsessively following every twist and turn in the AI race, DeepSeek is a Chinese company whose own AI model went viral in January. Their AI performed at a similar level to leading US models, but used far fewer computing resources. This raised the question, are Stargate-scale mega projects really necessary?
DeepSeek appears to have found a more efficient way to power AI. Was that a moment of rethink for you? And are you doing anything differently now?
I think the DeepSeek team is very talented and did a lot of good things. I don't think they figured out something like way more efficient than what we figured out.
But do you think there is a more efficient way to power
I'm sure. I'm sure. We have made incredible efficiency strides year over year, and I'm sure we'll keep doing that in the future.
So if that's the case, why are you building all this?
If we had an AI that we could offer at 1/10 of the price of current AI, I think people would use it 20 times as much. And we would still need twice as much compute to satisfy the then current demand.
Some companies seem less sure. Microsoft, for example, announced that it was pausing or canceling several data center builds in the US and abroad.
A lot of folks worry that we aren't that far from seeing some kind of pullback, some kind of wall. It's kind of like how all the big tech companies were hiring every single person they could in 2020, 2021. Then at one point, they started firing people. And I think we're at this point where every time a lease gets canceled for a data center, people wonder, oh, did we hit this moment? Do we really need all of this infrastructure? Is there really a payoff in the end? Are folks going to use these tools enough that it's going to pay for all of this build out?
How confident are you that OpenAI is going to be a financially sustainable and profitable enough company to justify all of this investment?
It's looking like we're doing really well. I mean, we are definitely doing something unprecedented. It seems like I feel confident in the bet. Doesn't mean something can't go wrong.
What are the risks?
I mean, maybe, people stop wanting to pay for AI services and then we have a difficult financial position.
What do you say to the people out there who think this is a massive boondoggle?
Look, I mean, I think there's always going to be doubters, but I think the money piece, I think so long as AI is delivering value to society, the money will be there to build the infrastructure. I have no concerns around that. Even if it's not all 100% accounted for today, that money is there, and there's a lot of money that wants to invest in this category. What we're undergoing right now is sort of the largest infrastructure build in human history, right? This is like where we built the interstate highway system. That enabled massive interstate commerce and transportation and catalyzed this massive boom in the US economy. What's happening in AI infrastructure is we're building the superhighway system that's going to enable modern intelligent systems. That's going to create all sorts of new job categories that don't even exist today. Mm-hmm. It's going to create new ways of doing business. It's going to create new ways of invention, and it's going to really drive humanity forward.
Technology is embedded in every aspect of our lives.
And laying the foundation for the future.
From finance to defense, AI to entertainment.
And from the road to the stars. Bloomberg brings you the latest stories of the people and companies pushing the tech sector to new frontiers.
And the politics that shape global tech markets.
I'm Caroline Hyde in New York.
And I'm Ed Ludlow in San Francisco.
Watch Bloomberg Tech every weekday.
Only on Bloomberg Television.
Middle East and Africa, vibrant resources and high-yield investment opportunities abound. Join me on Horizons Middle East and Africa for the stories, newsmakers, and insight from this exciting region. Now weekdays, only on Bloomberg.
It's a multi-trillion-dollar industry. We'll show you what's happening in ETFs like no one else. ETF IQ, only on Bloomberg.
The data center boom isn't just affecting the AI business. There are local impacts too. Across the country, places like Abilene are trying to attract data center projects and the jobs and tax revenue that come with them.
I make $1 a year being mayor, so I've got to have another business too.
So your side business is still the pest control?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a hired killer.
How would you describe Abilene?
Well, Abilene, it's an old railroad town, you know, so we have lots of Western heritage. But that doesn't mean that we don't want to grow and you know, look forward to the future. We want our city to grow, and we look forward to these opportunities that are coming to us.
What have you heard about the Stargate project?
It could quite possibly be the largest AI data center in the world, and that excites me, and to know that we're going to be a front runner in technology right here in West Texas.
I've spent the last couple of months looking at some of these biggest projects and trying to see what documents we can find. How have these, you know, some of the world's largest, most powerful companies been interacting with these local municipalities? Largely what we have found is that these local towns are willing to forego quite a bit of tax revenue, quite a bit of control to be able to bring these big companies in.
What is Abilene giving up to have Stargate here?
So what Abilene agreed to with Stargate, with this data center, is 85% of tax revenue off the property tax wiped.
So they're losing out on 85%.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they would say, and the developers would say, that you're still getting a lot of property tax revenue, and that's probably true, right? But these are pretty tough deals being struck, right? I mean, I think a lot of these smaller towns did not take place in the tech boom of the last 20 years. All of those jobs went to the coasts, right? And I think there's a lot of local city leaders who want to be able to say, we're a part of this. And they're willing to strike some pretty extreme deals to make it happen.
You're giving up 85% in tax revenue.
Yeah, we're getting 15% of billions of dollars, so that's the way I look at it, right? It is a large tax increase. We're talking millions of dollars on an annual basis. It's going to help us to pave streets, to hire police officers, to do the things cities do.
When you were negotiating, did you feel like there was a risk they could go elsewhere? Like, were you worried about not winning the deal?
Whenever you're attracting a prospect, yes, you always worry about that. But at the same time, if it wasn't going to work for both parties, we weren't going to lay down and just get run over by these people either.
How many jobs do you think Stargate will really create?
Well, I'll tell you what I've heard. So somewhere between 400 and 1,200. There's going to be security, there's going to be maintenance. You know, they're going to have grass, people are going to mow grass out there. So there's going to be all kinds of jobs that go with something that large too, other than just the technical jobs.
We think about tech investments and tech campuses as kind of these thousands of high-paying jobs that are really kind of boosting the local economy. Once data centers are completed, it's often not a lot of full-time workers.
How am I thinking about that scene in Silicon Valley, and there's one guy in that data center?
There's really no difference between day and night down here, so it makes things easy.
There are going to be quite a few people here. I know you're looking for a specific number from me, but I can't give it to you.
What if they don't create as many jobs as you hope for?
You know, I don't know a lot about AI centers or how many people they employ. I mean, I'm going to be honest about that. But, you know, they're still building the facility. They're still putting billions of dollars into the economy. And so we're just trusting. You know, we have to have a little trust with these partnerships.
We're in downtown Abilene right now. It's really windy. I can see why this is a good place for wind power. We just wanted to talk to people to see what they think about Stargate, if they've heard of it. So we're gonna go try to find some folks and not blow away. So have you heard of Stargate?
I have.
Until recently, I had not.
Have you heard of Stargate?
No.
It was announced by Trump, and that's kind of really all that I've heard.
I know that it has to do with AI and is supposed to bring maybe a lot of people to Abilene.
It's going to be a big server farm and employ quite a few people.
What do you think about that?
Computers are a good thing. I'm a computer guy. I did that in the Army. I invented computers.
Oh, you invented computers.
Yeah.
So what do you hope it brings to Abilene?
I would love to see more people here, and especially like it would help local businesses.
For Abilene, for West Texas, I think it creates a huge stream of jobs that aren't readily available. Meth and alcohol addiction is huge in this area because one of the only jobs available is oil and gas. And so this adds something different and hopefully breaks some of those cycles.
Do you have any concerns about how much power they're going to use or water? And
You know, I know that AI takes up a lot of power to use, but I'm not too sure what exactly it'll do to Abilene. I feel like I'm not concerned on that side of things.
A lot of power, does that concern you?
Good. What's wrong with that?
Well, it might put some stress on the Abilene grid.
Well, need to increase the grid then.
What do you think about AI?
AI has terrified me for 20 years. I think there's so many questions that we don't have answers to when it comes to AI. I think we're biting off way more than we can chew.
Do you use AI at all?
I actually do use AI, yeah. Our professors at ACU sometimes recommend that we use it. I think it's a good thing. I think it can be used two ways, either creatively or kind of a crutch.
So how do you feel about the fact that Abilene's going to be the site of this big development?
I love jobs coming to Abilene, but I'm not excited about it. Where are we going and how do you even fight it? The big picture to me is AI is going to take over, and then where are we as humans? You know, it terrifies me. It honestly just terrifies me.
Well, mixed reviews. There's definitely a lot of questions. We'll have to see how the project pans out, and it's going to happen over years. So it could be a while before we know for sure. There's this lofty promise that AI data centers are going to create thousands and thousands of jobs. Meantime, AI is destroying jobs elsewhere. Yeah. And I feel like even, there is serious anxiety out there. People are scared.
Totally.
Even among the best engineers and technologists, people are scared. What do you say to those people?
AI is for sure going to change a lot of jobs, totally take some jobs away, create a bunch of new ones. Mm-hmm. This is like this is what happens with technology. In fact, I think if you look at the history of the world, that's just been happening for a long time. The thing I think the world is not ready for, people have maybe abstractly thought okay, it's gonna be a better programmer than me, it's gonna be, better at customer support, whatever. I don't think the world has really had the humanoid robots moment yet. The first day you're walking down the street and there's 7 robots that walk past you doing things or whatever, it's gonna feel very sci-fi. And I don't think that's very far away from a visceral, oh man, this is gonna do a lot of things that people used to do. So yeah, it's coming. And we have always tried to just be super honest about what we think the impact may be, realizing that we'll be wrong on a lot of details.
Up-to-the-minute global news whenever and wherever it happens. I'm Jemana Bersecci in Davos, Switzerland, and this is Bloomberg.
We're at the epicenter of a global realignment on a scale not seen for decades. At the intersection between markets, economics, and geopolitics, a forum for sophisticated conversation. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
Thousands of American Marines are heading to the Middle East.
Greece will not participate.
There's a very good chance we're going to end up in a deal.
He's looking at putting boots on the ground.
This is going to be a short-term excursion.
Trust Bloomberg for on-the-ground coverage.
Things are not de-intensifying.
A lot of fear here in Europe. Ukraine is being left out in the cold.
Up-to-the-minute reporting.
The Fujita report has been hit.
Missiles have struck the U.S. Embassy.
And the analysis you need.
The United States military has shown its might. Now it's time to please calm down.
Nobody covers geopolitics like Bloomberg.
What is going to be the consequence for U.S. markets? We are seeing modest gains across European equity markets.
Take a look at how we're faring when it comes to Asian markets.
Join me each week on Wall Street Week for stories of capitalism from business, markets, economics, tech, and climate. More than what you need to know, it's what you need to think about.
Lately, predicting the future of AI seems harder than usual.
In a few moments, I will sign a historic executive order instituting reciprocal tariffs.
President Trump's tariffs and the increasing volatility of geopolitics have created potential challenges for the AI infrastructure boom. and shaken up the race to dominate AI between the US and China.
Technology faces rising costs.
Building these data centers just got considerably more expensive.
It is very difficult to immediately decouple.
Uncertainty is bad for business. Instead of moving forward, people have war rooms about, oh, what's tomorrow going to look like?
Former diplomat Anya Manuel and Bloomberg's Shireen Ghaffari have been closely watching how this could impact projects like Stargate.
How much does the AI and data center supply chain depend on China?
Yeah, so a lot of the materials that are used to build data centers, a lot of those materials actually come from China, right? Aluminum, steel, China's a major manufacturer. That could be an area of impact on raising construction center costs. Now, on the chip side, that's a much bigger, higher cost for these companies, right? And that there's a lot more uncertainty.
The most sophisticated chips are manufactured in Taiwan, Korea, Japan, often brought to China to be integrated into all of the electronics that are in all of our pockets. This is a really complex, totally international supply chain. And I think the takeaway for everyone is you cannot just break the international trading system, and we cannot be a country that lives in autarky. We're always going to depend on others.
What does Stargate mean for the US-China tech race?
I think it's one critical step in so many steps. When you look at the race that's on between, Chinese are giving us a run for their money.
China's right behind us. I mean, we're very, very close. 50% of the world's AI researchers are Chinese.
That doesn't mean we can't collaborate with the Chinese, and it certainly means we should keep talking to them. But where you used to have some level of trust and some level of communication, now you don't have it. And I worry that the tariffs, not directly but indirectly, are making us lose that kind of trust.
Now that we're in this position, there's obviously this tension between the US and China. Is this an opportunity to do it a different way, to build data centers a different way?
I think that's exactly right. This is an opportunity to do it differently. What I would like to see is that more advanced manufacturing of the most sophisticated chips happens here. And I think TSMC is doing some of that. Others, the CHIPS Act really helped. Also, going back to Stargate, those data centers and all of the AI training and the AI inference shouldn't just be happening in the United States. It should be happening in friendly allied countries as well. Iceland, Greenland, the Nordics that have lots of geothermal power should be a part of it. Europe should be a part of it. Japan, our friends in Asia, Singapore. There's really an opportunity here to have a community of like-minded countries that are doing this together.
Is President Trump alienating many countries that would be our allies in this endeavor?
Yes, some of our friends and allies feel a little bit alienated. I hope ultimately that won't be the case. I think increasingly the administration will understand how important our partners are and how much they add to us. And so I actually believe we'll come out okay in the end.
There are still many questions about where the business of AI is headed. The expense of building and running these data centers makes it tough to turn a profit. OpenAI, for example, ran a $5 billion loss in 2024. And there's no guarantee that simply adding huge amounts of compute will make AI models smart and reliable enough to be truly transformative. So, as solid and substantial as Stargate might seem, it's surrounded by uncertainty about how smart AI can get, which bets will pay off, and what kind of future we're creating.
The tech industry goes through booms and busts. AI goes through winters and springs. How long is this boom gonna last?
I think this boom has quite a bit of legs to it. You just sort of look at the long-term investments that the biggest companies in the world are making in this. And I think, even with things coming out like DeepSeek, I think everybody was pretty unanimous in terms of we're staying the course. What's required for AI to scale is a lot more infrastructure, and there's a bigger risk to underinvestment than overinvestment.
If ChatGPT were to discover a Stargate, a futuristic wormhole that we could all travel through, what's on the other side?
If ChatGPT could transport us to the future.
Yeah.
I mean, no one knows, right? Do I think I could have sat here in 1905 and told you what we were about to discover in physics? And that 40 years later we would have an atomic bomb? Definitely not. I think I am way too self-aware of my own limitations to sit here and try to say I can like tell you what's on the other side of that wormhole. I have no idea.
But net good, yes?
Up and down, not better in every way, but yeah, I think
Up and to
net
the
better.
right.
Yeah, up and to the right with some choppiness.
Let's cut right to it. This is Bloomberg's new show, Primer.
This is the fundamental building block of our fusion technology.
We're doing things that have never been done by anybody, ever.
If you want to understand what's coming, you'll want to watch Primer, because details matter. So do lasers.
There we go.
Oh, and it's on all these lovely channels. Hope you're jotting this down.
Nobu-san, would you say, when you look at your career, that the pivotal moment was actually that meeting with Robert De Niro? It took him 4 years to convince you to open a restaurant near him. You eventually did, and that started a partnership that has lasted through the decade.
You know, I met him 1988 after my first restaurants opened. He asked me to come to open the restaurant in New York. And beginning, I didn't know what he did there.
You didn't know he was an actor?
No, I don't know what he doing. Because I never watched the movies, you know, I was traveling, the business. But of course, after, you know, people, hey, Nobu, so you must know him. And then I understand.
How is he as a partner?
He's, for me, and a great partner. He understands to my concept. He support me 100%. But he's a very smart people. Sometimes so strange idea, but it's good idea. So, example, Nobu Hotels idea come from him. He said, "Hey Nobu, so we have a lot of new restaurants coming in somebody's hotel." For him, doesn't make any sense. Then we start Nobu Hotel in Las Vegas 11 years ago. Now it's a big success. So next step is the residence.
I'm Alex Rodriguez.
And I'm Jason Kelly.
And we're back with another
On and Off the Field. Jerry Jones.
Some good-looking trophies.
1 and 1 is 3 in sports, not 2. And it's because that 3 is imagination. That 3 is putting yourself in a way, having yourself hit the home run.
Erica Ayers-Badon.
I'm a high-energy board member. I'm very passionate. I have a lot of opinions.
Robin Arzone.
I want to light fires in people's lives, and that is still one of my core mandates for all of my businesses.
Justin Tuck.
I tell all of my friends that play in leagues now, make these relationships now while you're hot. Don't wait till you're like your 12th year in and you're just hanging on.
Stay tuned. You won't want to miss it.
Good morning. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
Welcome back to the opening trade.
Watch Bloomberg Tech.
This is the Asia Trade.
This is Wall Street Week. Welcome to Balance of Power.
You're watching Bloomberg Deals.
Welcome to Bloomberg This Weekend. This is Bloomberg Television.
Bringing you up to the minute geopolitical news whenever and wherever it's happening. I'm Anne-Marie Hordern in Caracas, Venezuela, and this is Bloomberg.
Know how the market day started.
Find out how it finishes.
Public markets to private markets.
From the micro to the macro.
Covering retail, entertainment, the business of sports.
The supply chains, trade policy, how it all is impacting the U.S. equity market as we drive to the closing bell at 4 p.m.
A holistic approach to covering financial markets.
If it matters to your life, we're covering it. I'm Katie Greifeld.
And I'm Romaine Bostic, and this is The Close.
Live every weekday.
Only on Bloomberg. Context changes everything.
To live and work on the moon might sound like a dream.
I was strawberry month of December. May.
Or a complete nightmare, depending on who you ask.
The moon is terrible. It's a terrible place to be.
Extremely inhospitable place.
A very dusty environment.
Extreme temperature swings.
It's a lot of radiation.
The moon gets bombarded by meteorites,
Microgravity conditions.
solar flares.
So, after more than 50 years,
we're sending humans back to the moon.
One thing that Apollo got a lot of criticism for was the fact that we kind of just went there and left flags and footprints, but we didn't stay.
Today, the vision is to build an architecture that allows a lunar ecosystem to emerge to support continued activity on the moon.
if successful, these endeavors could redefine the boundaries of human life and exploration.
Essentially, we're working to build humanity's home on another world.
We want to deploy our presence and our understanding on the moon because it will just be a springboard to the next.
It will require the highest levels of scientific discovery, technological advancement, and, well, money.
I'm talking about tens and hundreds of billions of dollars.
These investments we make today will have a direct impact on our future space economy.
If we can actually find ways to sustain businesses on the lunar surface, then what's to say we can't find ways to sustain businesses on asteroids, on Mars, other areas of space that we're not even thinking about right now?
It all starts with getting back to the moon.
Something that I like to think about, the first human that ever looked at the moon, at that moment, we were always going. We were always going to seek to have a sustained presence there. We're ready to go back and to stay. We have the technologies that are going to enable us. So it's really just always been a part of what had to happen.
I'm about 2 cycles lower on this chair than when we started, so doesn't matter to me, but I wanted to give you the opportunity.
Please
keep that. I love it.
Don't cut that.
These are the Artemis II astronauts, and they're destined for the moon.
Well, Artemis in Greek mythology is Apollo's twin sister.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
I think our generation appreciates having a program that now we get a chance to take our own moonshots, right? What we call great things that humans accomplish. This is our generation's opportunity to send humans into deep space to explore.
Now, it might seem strange to say the moon, our closest celestial neighbor, is in deep space, but it is wildly far away. It is 1,000 times farther away than the International Space Station, which is in low Earth orbit. So the fact that we were actually able to reach it back in the 60s is quite impressive. Now,
we're coming off a decade of massive and unprecedented venture investment in space.
This is Carissa Bryce Christensen, founder and CEO of Bryce Tech, known for data-driven analysis of the satellite and space industry.
The world of lunar exploration today is a lot more expansive and inclusive, so opportunity space for new actors, new innovators, new investors, new companies.
As of January 2020, on par with the global semiconductor industry or the entire global sports market. Surprisingly, most of that money has nothing to do with the moon.
The lucrative business of space, the $100 billion markets, are associated with satellites.
Almost everything we consider part of the space industry is directly linked to life on Earth because the tech is designed to serve us humans. Thus far, the moon has been seen as an opportunity for government-funded exploration, not necessarily business. But we know the commercial satellite companies of today wouldn't exist without the technology, innovation, and investment from the space race. Can modern government interest in the moon open the door for commercial companies to thrive and create new business opportunities even further out in our solar system? The overall space economy is projected to be worth $1.8 trillion by 2035. And theoretically, the moon could become a bigger, more commercial slice of that money pie. If the companies pursuing lunar endeavors can master the technology and figure out that one very important thing.
Customers. They need a value proposition that delivers something that people want to pay for.
This is Rio Wujie, Chief Technology Officer of iSpace, a lunar exploration company.
Here at Tsukuba Space Center, we are using the Japan Space Agency's facility to carry out our assembly, integration, and test activity. After that, we are going to once ship to the US to launch our lander to the space. And after that, lander is going to fly to the moon.
That shiny gold piece of tech you see in the background, that's their lunar lander. Well, actually, it's their second.
Japanese company iSpace admits its shot to become the first private company to land a spacecraft on the moon.
A Japanese company is assuming its attempt to put a lander on the moon has failed after losing communication with the vehicle.
At this moment, we have not able to confirm successful landing on the lunar surface.
Which is a nice way of saying it crashed. Prior to 2025, only 5 countries and 1 commercial company had ever landed intact. Now, this year alone, there are 5 commercial missions scheduled to send landers to the moon. As of April, 2 have already reached the lunar surface. Firefly Aerospace was successful. Intuitive Machines landed, just in the wrong orientation. iSpace is set to be next, vying for a reputation as a reliable provider of payload transport to lunar orbit and the lunar surface. Payload transport is one of the most obvious ways to make money in space. Payload is synonymous with passenger or cargo. So, if you've got a vehicle with available space, you can let people pay you to transport their payloads. Payload transport. Whether it's a satellite company buying space on a rocket or a government agency buying space on a lunar lander, anything going into space needs a ride, and a reliably consistent one at that. In the case of the moon, a ride that can land. Landers must arrive with enough fuel to operate large thrusters that slow the spacecraft down for a soft landing, hopefully avoiding the many craters and rocks that speckle the surface.
The most challenging part should be our landing, the operation, because we don't have, the lunar environment. We don't have a, like a field to simulate lunar environment, including gravity and so on. We still have a lot of unknown factor there.
A lot of these problems can only be solved by taking the risk and sending more missions to the moon. Simultaneously, there are some clever solutions being developed to help answer big questions from right here on Earth.
Bringing you up-to-the-minute automotive news whenever and wherever it happens. I'm Matt Miller in Detroit, and this is Bloomberg.
Welcome to Bloomberg This Weekend. I'm David Gurr.
I'm Lisa Mateo.
And I'm Christina Ruffini. We're tracking breaking news today from Wall Street to Washington.
Let's start overseas. The sector is really propelling this deal forward.
Yeah, the hope is this will open up new markets and provide some additional liquidity.
Of course, now they're going to have competitors.
We got a big week coming up in politics.
Earnings season is underway. We're going to get some key reports.
Everything you need to know before the markets open on Monday.
Introducing Bloomberg This Weekend, bringing a little Bloomberg into your weekend routine.
Guys, buckle up.
To better understand the lunar environment, the European Space Agency, aka ESA, built their own moon inside this little grey building.
So I'm standing here right now on the observation room looking into the Luna facility. This facility is something that we built here in the last year. Essentially, it's an operational training facility used for testing new technologies, for training astronauts for future missions. But the real key feature about what we've done here is we've basically tried to recreate the lunar surface.
The moon is covered in lunar regolith, a deceptively hostile sand-like substance. It is extremely dusty, electrostatic, so it sticks to everything, and it's razor sharp, presenting all sorts of challenges for humans and equipment. And that's just one of the conditions this facility mimics.
On the one side, we have an offload system for gravity. On the other side, we have the illumination conditions you will face once you do operations on the surface of the moon. We can even freeze part of the soil because it's rather cold there. So you have on 700 square meters the capability to have the conditions you really face at the surface of the moon.
Even still, one could say we've only scratched the surface.
The moon, you can consider it a bit like the eighth continent.
If you took the surface area of the moon and flattened it out into a rectangle, it would be about the size of the continent of Africa.
There have been a dozen of people walking on the moon a couple of decades ago. Can we say that in a couple of hours, a dozen of people have explored a full continent of the size of Africa? I don't think so.
It'd be the same as us saying, we've been to the beach and now we think we know the ocean. There's so much more of the moon.
The more we learn about the moon, the more effectively we can use it as a proving ground for the capabilities needed to go beyond.
We want to go to Mars. We want to go the next step. And to go to Mars will bring us additional challenges.
These kind of representative environments allow us to get familiar with the challenges of working and training on the moon and getting ready for that exploration that we anticipate in the next decade. I think it becomes important to see how we can actually create an economic case around exploration of the moon. The moon, although it looks like a desert, in fact is loaded with very valuable resources. So there's a lot of metals bound into the regolith, there's a lot of oxygen on the moon. I mean, nearly 40% of the moon is oxygen. So that's very valuable resources.
Where there are resources, there's the potential for in situ resource utilization, or ISRU for short. Essentially, the use of whatever we can find locally on the moon, or any other planet for that matter, to enable our work or life there.
One of the main motivating factors that NASA has used for going back to the moon is the recent discovery of water ice on the surface of the moon. The constituents of water, hydrogen and oxygen, are the main components of rocket fuel.
When you travel to space, right now, you have to carry all of your fuel with you. And fuel is heavy.
Every pound that you launch into space, that adds more dollars, that adds more weight to your rocket. So if we can find resources that we can use on the moon, that will save us money.
It could also create ways for people to sell the resources and make money off of the moon.
There are many ideas relating to that, from resource extraction for purposes of fuel or finding unique resources that are valuable on Earth, to one of my favorites, which is the idea of moon rock jewelry.
From there, the business possibilities only get bigger and more expansive.
A thriving lunar economy would mean that there's so much more potential for ways to make money and to explore space that we just haven't dreamed of yet.
Even as we wait for the pieces of a viable lunar economy to fall into place, there are already customers interested in the moon.
Now, almost more than 25 years ago, I had an idea. Then I did the stupidest or the bravest thing I've ever done. My name is Michael Jenberg. I'm an artist. In the broader sense, sometimes they call me an entrepreneur, or I don't know, but I'm an artist, basically.
His current project? To put the very first house on the moon. Sort of.
I'm Swedish, and it is a typical Swedish house, and we're actually sitting in one now. This is from 1758. I was raised in one. My parents was, my grandparents was, and even further back. So I was working with that concept, and I had this idea that the ultimate piece of art would be to put a red house with white corners on the surface of the moon. The interesting thing, I think, is the size here.
So yeah, not a full-scale house.
I mean, this is really insignificant here. I mean, it's really nothing in a sense. But on the moon, it will be totally alone on this enormous, vast void of kind of nothingness. So in my mind, it will be enormous in a sense. Doesn't have any purpose here at all. It only gets a purpose when it reaches the moon.
The moon house belongs on the moon. It's in the name. So in order to get there, Michael and his team purchased a payload spot on the iSpace lunar lander.
When we started 25 years ago, there was no commercial transportation possibilities to the moon. But when we learned that iSpace existed and we understood that they were actually taking payloads, all of a sudden it was tangible.
Neither iSpace nor Michael could reveal the actual cost, so we were left with an analogy instead.
If I would build a really, really nice house here in Sweden with a swimming pool and everything, that would kind of be equivalent to what a house on the moon in this size actually costs.
Though it'll never be lived in, this red house might give us the littlest metaphorical glimpse into what life on the moon might one day be.
So if we envision a future lunar settlement, what does that look like?
We're going to need infrastructure, a lot of it.
So if you take a hard-nosed look at a lunar economy, you could maybe say people are romanticizing a vision of a lunar settlement, a lunar community. But without that vision, without that fundamental deep human push to explore, we would achieve nothing as a species. You need big thinkers, you need visionaries, you need those people who think beyond the feasible in order to achieve anything.
Got it. We need visionaries and big thinkers, and definitely lasers.
The phone is, what's great about it is it's a well-developed gaming ecosystem, right? So it, folks know to find games there, but it's also a highly competitive gaming ecosystem. So it's developed, this gives you both that upside and the downside. But what's exciting is that now we are moving beyond the phone to the TV. So I mentioned like one of the big gaming areas we're going after. One of the big gaming areas we're going after now is, social gaming experiences that will show up on your TV. So we are now announcing, we're going to announce here actually, that we're going to have these social party games that you can play on your TV with your phone as the controller. And it's things like, recognizable games like Boggle, you got Pictionary, we've got a Lego party game. We, basically are gonna like unleash this with a bunch of creators, and they're gonna go figure out stuff that we didn't even imagine that they can do with that interactivity.
Asia is at the forefront of some of the world's biggest stories. I'm Sherrian in Tokyo.
And I'm Heidi Stroud-Watts here in Sydney, where the trading day begins. We're here in the center of all the action to get you set up with the numbers, news, and knowledge you need for the day ahead.
The demand is indeed recovering. We've been waiting for this moment.
The opportunity of a century.
Join us on Bloomberg The Asia Trade. Weekdays only on Bloomberg TV. Context changes everything.
Key investors, top executives, global innovators. Join me for in-depth conversations with the biggest newsmakers on the day's top stories. Insight with Haslinda Ahmed, only on Bloomberg.
Get your fixed income fix. Watch Bloomberg Real Yield a thing.
Okay, just a moment. There we go. Okay, so these lasers aren't zooming around like some big sci-fi moment. But what you see happening is the start of how we might actually be able to build structures on the surface of the moon. And if it works, this could open the door for all kinds of activity and business there. This is Project Olympus.
So ICON's Project Olympus is a robotic autonomous construction system specifically for the moon and eventually Mars. Essentially, we're working to build humanity's home on another world.
Based in Austin, Texas, ICON has been innovating in the world of home construction since 2017 and has built nearly 200 homes and structures across the US and Mexico. Their proprietary technology essentially uses a special concrete material and huge 3D printers to build houses, one layer at a time.
So here on Earth, we build with Lava Creek Carbon X. Essentially, bringing even just a small amount of it to the moon could cost a couple $100,000 for essentially a single brick worth of material.
If we do some quick math, that means that building one average-sized home on the moon could cost upwards of $6 billion in bricks alone.
But if there's material there to build with, and you can build a robot to autonomously construct structures with it, then you can save a lot of money. So essentially, you bring just the tools and none of the materials, and you can build what you need to live off the land.
More specifically, their robot will use solar energy and a system of lasers to
scoop, tamp, filter, and compact the regolith. Use the lasers to actually melt.
Remember in situ resource utilization? Voila! The dangerous, dusty lunar regolith becomes a structural ceramic that we can build with. So, assuming we can get this 3D printing robot and its lasers to the lunar surface,
we're able to build things like landing pads, roads, protective structures, eventually habitats.
I think it's essential when we're talking about what space architecture is and should be, that we merge form with function.
This is Melody Yashar, ICON's Vice President of Building Design and Performance. And on a more cosmic note, she's a space architect.
Of course, I think that it's important that space architecture aspires to represent the symbol for humankind's pioneering accomplishments in space, but it also has to solve very fundamental engineering problems of what it means to create a resilient environment in this very, very hostile and extreme landscape.
So what might structures on the moon actually look like?
So this was a concept for a Olympus architecture where we conceived of a torus-shaped habitat, which is what you see here, in various sizes that could house a crew of 4 astronauts for approximately 1 year. We were able to introduce these small pockets that we could introduce loose regolith into. This was a strategy to essentialize the 3D printing to the main structure.
With this plan, builders, or builder robots, could rely on the lunar regolith and its natural properties to create a structure that serves as a radiation shield to protect humans, one of the major engineering challenges for building on the moon.
We need to demonstrate that the technology can print autonomously and construct surface infrastructure autonomously. So there's a long roadmap. I think it's going to be at least another 20 years before we can consider how 3D printing can be incorporated within the design of a pressurized habitat.
So, say the technology is ready for all of this development on the moon within the next 2 decades. It begs the question, what kinds of protections and regulations will be necessary as human activity expands out into deep space? Back in 2020, the US Department of State and NASA launched the Artemis Accords.
The Artemis Accords are a framework. First and above all, a political signal initiated by the United States of America, looking for partners in their endeavor to explore the moon.
The Accords serve as guidelines for peaceful practices and collaboration on the moon. To date, more than 50 countries have signed the agreement. Some key players are partnered in a different initiative, and because of that, this isn't just a question of planetary protection, but maybe national security as well.
Lawmakers within the U.S. have been sounding the alarm in recent years about China's increasing activity in space. China has been launching very frequently and has a very robust space program as well. One concern from lawmakers is that the moon can be considered a military high ground. So if China were to place certain assets in the lunar vicinity, they could potentially have the high ground over assets in low Earth orbit or in geo orbit.
We are back in a situation where we are more in a, let me call, tense world on a geopolitical level. But I'm convinced that if humanity wants to go to the next step, we will have to find each other again. And I hope that the moon will be an opportunity for that.
When I started with this project, I used to look at the moon and I saw the impossibility of it. But during the years, I've been kind of pointing at it and saying, it has to be possible, understanding that it's not possible. And now that it's possible, I go there, I go out and I see the moon and I go like, hey, you know, it's like it's so much more, it's like something intimate.
Curiosity and wonder have always been a driving force in the space industry, and this time is no different. But a lunar ecosystem and economy still have some big unknowns. From proving we can land consistently, to building infrastructure, to finding the resources to keep humans alive. None of this modern moonshot is guaranteed. But for some, it's worth the risk.
This random name is resilience. The resilience means continuously overcoming and working and keep challenging. This is exactly our mentality in this second mission.
We're at the point where we're putting money in order to see results in the future.
I have no crystal ball, and I will not speculate. But what I can tell you is that we do everything to enable this lunar economy to become reality.
At some point, we can tip the scales to having humanity understand we have something in common and a shared interest in surviving, all of us, and that our planet survives as well. We're not going to the moon so we can have an escape path for Earth, but to make our lives on Earth better.
A cidade estava sitiada.
Nisso, ao começo, eu tremia, não sabia o que fazer.
Foi a mais terrível que eu passei na minha vida.
Eu temo, né, que o Brasil se torne, num futuro próximo, um narco-estado.
Porque no final, tudo é dinheiro.
People back home, they are suffering. And someone is driving a Range Rover with their money.
Where is my money?
I think she's a scam up to now.
It's some of the world's most desperate people who are getting ripped off.
Repeat after me. I am a winner.
I didn't know how big it was. I didn't really understand what I was getting myself into.
If you tell me you have a vision of being $1 billion business, then you're going to have to do what it takes. And if you're not going to do that, everybody's going to suffer.
Una batalla a muerte.
Money can do a lot of good. It can really transform people's lives, but it can also hurt them.
Eternal life, a concept that has captivated the imagination of humans since the dawn of time. I'm David Rubenstein. The advances that have been made in science recently has made it possible for people to live much longer than they would have otherwise lived decades ago. With innovation exploding, it's harder than ever to know what's real and what's just hype. On longevity, I talk with the leading experts in science and medicine to educate people about how they might be able to change their conduct so that they can live a happier and healthier life.
It is at front and center of what we're trying to resolve and understand.
Americans need to know they are at risk of dying from the next pandemic.
What we really need in our lives is to build community.
Knowledge is power. The generation before us, cancer was considered a sign of weakness, and many never talked about it.
Longevity without health is not valuable, but if you can maintain health, people are productive when they're older.
Join me on a 4-part journey as I explore the great quest for longevity. Only on Bloomberg.
Bringing you the world's business and financial news whenever and wherever it happens. I'm Michael McKee at Mount Everest, and this is Bloomberg.
At 9:30 a.m., the market tells you what it's really thinking.
We beat the drum to the opening bell.
With deep analysis of the forces driving the price action.
Focusing investors on what really matters.
Where the money flows, which markets are changing.
Conversations with players shaping the narrative.
Innovative growth companies gravitate to NASDAQ.
It's not just like, let's buy the Mag 7 or AI.
That's a really compelling story.
This is where your trading day begins.
And this is Open Interest.
Only on Bloomberg.
Bringing you up to them in the news whenever and wherever it happens. I'm Sherian in Seoul, and this is Bloomberg.
Hello, I'm
I'm Danny Berger, and welcome to this look back at Bloomberg Invest New York, the flagship event in Bloomberg Live's 2026 series of exciting, informative, curated experiences. Investors converged on the financial district for 2 days in early March to hear from the most influential voices across asset management, private capital, and wealth. The agenda focused on private markets and private credit, assets that are among the primary forces redefining global finance. Growth in this sector has accelerated incredibly quickly, and some of the major players in private and public markets came to Bloomberg Invest to discuss where the industry is going from here.
The entirety of the companies that you see that are public today, everyone was 40 billion in 2008.
Yeah.
We're now close to $1 trillion, Blackstone more, KKR a little less. This is not good management, or not solely good management. This is a function of structural change in our marketplace. And that structural change is continuing, and the reward for good work is actually more work. In our case, it's managing more money. And I think that is where we're heading. I think this will be a shakeout. I don't think it is going to be short term. I think the 30% overhang of geopolitics, inflation, technological change is now here. It was foreseeable, not maybe exactly how it occurred, but it was foreseeable, it was predictable. And all you can do is have been a good underwriter, a good risk manager, have done a small number of stupid things. And by the way, we've lived in an environment of tight spread. If you were a good risk manager, you are going to make more money this year and next year if it continues than you ever have before, because you've been risk off. And so that's always the bifurcation of minds. First, you want to play defense and make sure, in fact, you've done what you think you have done, which is manage good risk, and then you want to play offense.
Do you think, though, you're going to end up with mega mergers in this bit? I mean, that's what happened in banks at some point.
I think our business is will not in the long term be limited by capital raising. It will be limited by our capacity to find good investments and by culture. So unlike a public asset manager who can buy as fast as we can originate good risk.
Diversification is a big way to mitigate risk. It's also a way to dampen return if you focus too much on diversification. So we're constantly trying to find that right balance of making sure that we can capitalize on volatility. And one of the ways you do that is you understand deeply what you own, so that when the markets get dislocated or disrupted, you can push in and play offense. Inevitably, if you are concentrated, whether it's AI or we saw it in the energy shakeout, 5-6 years ago, there are going to be winners and losers. Generally speaking, those that are more diversified will survive, consolidate, and probably grow disproportionately.
We've already started to see some consolidation. I have to say, I feel like you and I have been talking about consolidation for years. Does it feel at all that it's reaching a head at this moment, that you really are starting to see some funds that are limping along and their only odds of survival are to become bigger and join a larger platform?
So we've been talking about consolidation for over a decade, and back to secular themes driving the growth in private markets and capital formation is consolidation. So unlike investing in the public markets, size is not the enemy of performance in the private markets. It's quite the opposite, because the larger you get, the more resources you have, the more you can invest in local origination, product development, large balance sheet. The more relevant you are to customers, the more relevant you are to global investors. So size is not something that we necessarily pursue as an end goal, but what we're all experiencing is that the larger we get, the better our performance is. Consolidation is not about limping along and getting subsumed. There's been some of that, right? We acquired ACAS and Allied and other public companies coming out of the GFC, but it's more the high quality lines. So to your earlier question about lack of concentration, if you're a infra-only equity manager, or you're a single geography private equity manager, but you have a 25-year institutional track record and a legacy that you want to sustain, you will try to get consolidated from a position of strength, not a position of weakness. That being said, if we continue to see the type of volatility that we're seeing now, I do think that you'll see, some of these weaker players get consolidated out.
Scott, how did we even get to this moment, though, where private credit became the behemoth, the headline grabber that it is today?
from my perspective, again, 40 years in finance, been all over the world with Goldman and JP, and you know, the Western capital markets are going through a real change and evolution now. As you've had sort of the post-financial crisis have shrunk, you've got some big banks still very involved in the capital markets. You've got some big, some of the people that were on stage here over the last couple of days, you know, insurance companies and others, and then you've got some fiduciary firms like ourselves and BlackRock and Ares was on stage. You know, those firms are really bringing private pools of capital to grow companies. And with that, there's not enough bank capital in the world to grow the economy, and particularly as governments have leveraged themselves, there's really just not enough capital to grow the economy. And I think you're going to see that wave has been very big in the US, very big in Europe, parts of Asia, Australia. I think that's going to continue over the next 30 to 50 years.
So what happens now to private markets? And everybody's, especially this conference, talking about yesterday, Mark Rowan said, you know, we're due for a correction in private markets. But obviously there are different businesses. Private equity is very different from private credit.
Yeah. So I think private markets are actually in pretty good shape. I think there's some pain out there. You know, if you have a cockroach in your portfolio, people are going to want to, you know, a company that, you know, committed fraud, that's an issue. I think that's very idiosyncratic.
You're not worried about the tricolors, the first brands, the MFS?
I'm not worried about that being systemic at all. It's not like liar loans on the subprime housing market back during the GFC that polluted the banks. The banks don't have this exposure. It's not that broad. It's very, very isolated. There will undoubtedly be more as people start to put the microscope on all these companies and bring religion back to how they lend, and lend in a much more disciplined way.
I think it's important to put the current market in context, because credit, private credit, and direct lending almost get used synonymously in today's environment. And we generally are of the view that credit markets are in good shape. Bank balance sheets are terrific, corporate balance sheets are strong, capital markets are liquid. Then you move to private credit, and we would suggest that most components of the private credit market are also in good shape. Real asset lending, asset-backed lending seems robust. Demand is outweighing supply. Credit spreads are strong. Covenant quality stays high. Then you get to direct lending. And there are undoubtedly some concerns about direct lending today. A lot of capital came in very quickly. Spreads tightened. Maybe some concerns about corporate credit quality. But it's important to recognize that in markets.
Is it the right way to do?
Investors see risk in whole portfolios, and I think that translates into a continuum and to an ongoing risk beyond the